Hello there, I'm Professor Seth Frey. Now we're going to talk a little bit about pulling code from the internet. So I'm going to communicate this idea that copying is sometimes good. This is an idea that's not going to be too familiar from your other from courses you've taken throughout your life, but we're flipping the script. Sometimes copying code is good. You're going to experience sort of the bond and the brotherhood that comes with finding someone else on the internet who had your idea first, already implemented. And yeah, maybe you're sad because you didn't think of it first, but you're happy because they saved you 6 months of work, or a week of work, or an hour of work, whatever. And all of this sense of brotherhood really taps into something bigger that is another part of the internet that's as powerful as code itself, the open source ecosystem. So we're used to copying being bad, and I'm very careful in this course. I define what cheating is. There's a certain amount of copying I do think is bad. You will fail the course if you engage in it, but I'm very clear about what counts as cheating, bad copying, and what counts as good copying. I encourage good copying from peers. I encourage good copying from the internet. So as you copy, you'll discover sources. Google's great. There's a site called Stack Exchange. You'll learn you've learned a little bit how to search the documentation of a library or of Python. Often there's useful code snippets on all of these sources. And as you get better at skimming, as you get better at reading, you'll learn what code you can take and run for yourself. Now, a really good practice, not just because it's fair, but it saves you headaches, is whenever you copy code from the internet, in addition to pasting that code itself, make a little comment, do your hashtag, and then take the URL you got that code from and paste it right next to the code. Say, from this URL. You're kind of doing that for this other person to give them credit for the code they wrote, but much more it's self-interested, because 6 months down the line, you're going to be reading this code. It's not in your style. It's using functions you never even learned. You don't know what it does. You're going to be able to follow that link and kind of remember or see the explanation that explains what this code does. The same explanation you read 6 months prior that inspired you to copy it in the first place. So you'll be able to backtrack and kind of understand what your code is doing, which sounds like it doesn't sound like the kind of problem a person's going to have. You wrote it, you should know how it works, but believe me, 6 months later, 1 week later, it's possible to look at code and be like, I know I wrote this, I have no idea what it's doing. So as many pointers as you can give yourself, pasting links, writing other notes to yourself, little explanations, is going to save you a headache. While making you a good code copier. Let's see. So, it's a powerful part of code that you get this idea. Oh, I'm going to code this thing. It's going to be great. My little project. Everyone's going to think I'm brilliant. Maybe you'll do it and find that 6 months later it was already done better by someone else. And that can be demoralizing, or you can appreciate it. You can be like, oh, wow. You can review their code and see how they took a very different approach from you, and you can learn from that. Eventually, you kind of skip that part and you go straight to, oh, here's a great idea. I bet I'm the first person to do this. Oh, wait, of course not. It's the internet. And so you're kind of going to learn at step one. To search around for your great idea, for the first person who did it first, whose shoulders you can stand on, whose product you can build on, and take even further in your own unique direction, turning a month of work maybe into an hour of work. This is a beautiful, powerful, inspiring thing. The internet is built on people building on each other's code, of trying not to be the first person to invent everything, of rather than just getting good at building things from scratch, getting good at reading other people's code, at skimming code, at getting the gist of someone else's way of approaching a problem. You get good at that, and you can really benefit from the amazing stuff all over the world. And just like I mentioned, copying code from from Stack Exchange, from Google, from the documentation of code, another resource that's just, as you get better, as you become a more mature, more experienced programmer, there's a resource called GitHub where people post entire projects that they want you to copy and take and build off of. Maybe you've heard of GitHub. That's what it's all about, is posting code up for the world to see. And this is how we get into the open source ecosystem. It might be a long time that you're taking other people's code and using it for yourself. Before, it could be like a decade, honestly, before you write something that's truly useful to someone else, you put it online and they start using it. So you'll have a long debt kind of built up of the generosity of just random other people on the internet who've lifted you up and brought you to a certain point, made you accomplish things you never thought were possible, before you eventually give back. You don't have to feel bad about that. There's a certain, we all, recognize the generosity of giving. There's a certain generosity in taking, a certain generous spirit in being open to the creations of others and willing to enter their mind and see how they thought about a problem and bring that into yourself. So you get to be generous during the taking phase, and then eventually when you're good, generous in the giving phase as well. And this makes you a part of this larger ecosystem. So there was a time when people said it would be impossible. It would be impossible for a bunch of volunteers who are not getting paid, who are working together on weird schedules, who have no incentive to build beautiful, important, powerful things that could possibly compete with Microsoft or Apple or whatever. But today, there are huge amounts of the internet, some of the most fundamental technologies on the internet that were built precisely that way. This is called the open source ecosystem, and by taking this course, by copying code from me, by copying code within it, you're beginning on your journey to being a part of that beautiful, really inspiring legacy. A bunch of random people on the internet able to outperform some of the biggest corporations in the world just by working together. It's a beautiful and exciting thing, and copying code from the internet is the beginning of that. The purpose of all this is to help you see that connection to something bigger than you, and help you see that you're inheriting, as you get into code, you're inheriting, especially code about the internet, you're inheriting a pretty exciting and important, valuable, and wonderful legacy of people, who a decade ago were in exactly your shoes, just starting out, no idea what's going on, and themselves were brought up by people before them who gave a lot of code, gave a lot of advice and support. So welcome to that.